1, a 2, a 1.
It's time for the Better Horses radio show. So let's saddle up and ride as we explore the Western way of life, horses and cows, family and friends, a relationship with the land, and a relationship with God. It's all here on Better Horses Radio. Now let's hit the trails with the Better Horses team.
You are dialed in to Better Horses. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And together we're going to host a 1-hour show of just about horses. Welcome to Better Horses, Merle. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me back again this week.
And it is a season, right? So all the shows are over. It is winter time. We are locking down the barns. And this is great time to have a radio show or an office job because we get to warm up for a minute before we go back out there.
It is, and like I found out, I told you the other day, we got to watch out for black ice. That is a real deal, not only in your vehicles, but also on foot.
and I think you need to share with our nationwide listeners that you did have an accident. So
I was going up to check on the barn at night, and it was darker, and just a little snow that we had, some of it melted and refroze on the sidewalk, and it was the first snow of the season, so you get broke in, but man, I first step onto the sidewalk and just like that, I was down, and I don't bounce like I used to, Ed. That's probably the saddest part for me. Yeah.
Well, it's actually getting you ready for those wild horses you're going to have to get legged up for the winter time. So that's going to be really great. Hey, we got a great show coming. I'm glad everybody joined us. Let me tell you what we have lined up for you. Kerry Kuhn, professional horse trainer out of Medicine Lodge, Kansas, who's going to talk about getting these horses legged up and exactly talk about some of the winter care that they need.
And we're going to talk with Jacob Freiberger. He is an insurance agent from American National Insurance. I want to talk to him about barn and horse insurance and see what he has to offer us about that.
That's pretty important. We don't really talk about that. It's like the non-sexy thing about what we do, right?
Yeah, that is a fact.
And I got to tell you something I am excited, a professional horse trainer coming our way. You haven't heard about her, but she is coming for the first time on Better Horses, Jacqueline Zacharias. And she has a successful horsemanship that she likes to have, Zacharias Horsemanship. And she's going to talk all about getting horses ready, getting them legged up, and getting them ready for the show ring.
Yes. You're not going to want to miss that segment. That's good. She's a lot of fun.
I like that. But hey, before we get started, let's move it over to Mark Alpold. Now, I know you've known that he's been traveling a lot, and we're glad to have him back. We appreciate everything he does. Welcome back, Mark.
Well, thanks, Ed. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know we watched a lot of football and had some great food as well with family. So I hope those of you tuning in here and listening that have the same experience, a great Thanksgiving, and looking forward to this holiday season and remembering the reason for the season. Well, we certainly easily lose track of the reason that we celebrate Advent and into Christmas. Well, we're getting into December here, and boy, Americans are spending. I want to start here today not talking about better cattle, a better economy. Americans are spending, and spending local. A great start to the holiday season. Now, official numbers are still not available here as far as the retail sales are concerned, but at least two items stuck out to me coming from the past weekend. Number one, shoppers are spending money. And number two, brick and mortar shopping is up. First time that's really happened since 2019 and the COVID years. Small Business Saturday drew an estimated 65 million shoppers to Main Street small towns across the country, a jump of over 8% since 2019. American Express estimates that 68 cents of every dollar spent locally is given back to the local community. And consumers still spending online, of course. National Retail Federation estimates that $7 billion was spent online Thanksgiving Day alone, another $12 billion on Black Friday. So bottom line, consumers are spending, and we've just getting a good start. Well, looking at this cattle market, I was listening to and reading some comments from Chris Swift. He is with Swift Trading out of Nashville. And looking at feeder cattle, he says this is how he ended his comments. He says, I would urge producers to calculate price that recently was paid for incoming inventory, then your cost of gain and the price needed to break even, and then consider your marketing options in the future for the inventory to make a price that is going to give you a profit. Now, looking at corn, this is where, again, he has interesting comments, and this is his a comment, not mine. He says, I recommend owning call options in July contract corn futures in some manner to keep from having to potentially feed high-priced corn to higher-priced feeder cattle. Again, owning call options in the July contract. We take a look at the futures trade in here as we again start this month of December, and kind of cooling off here from that cattle on feed report here a week or so ago. January feeders still right around that 260, 261 level, as is the March contract, but watch that 257 and a half level for January and March, for that matter, to hold in here through at least this first week of December. I want to end here by recognizing NCBA has released this year's Cattle Feeders Hall of Fame honorees, having just come from the Farm Broadcasters Hall of Fame and induction ceremony. Wow, an honor for me. Passing along congratulations to Joe Morgan. Many of you know Joe Morgan, Pokey Feeders out of Scott City, Kansas, and Dan May with 4M Feeders, Stratton, Colorado, in the Cattle Feeders Hall of Fame. Tom Jensen, he's a banker from Omaha. He was going to receive the Industry Leadership Award from NCBA in that Hall of Fame ceremony. That'll all take place on February 5th in San Antonio, Texas, as the NCBA convention begins. Well, that'll do it for us. Hope you guys have a great week, and as always, wishing you a profitable week ahead.
And thank you, Mark. We appreciate everything you're doing out there for Better Cattle and appreciate that update. Hey, you know what, Merle? I got to tell you, we got to give time out for as many professionals out there that want to give us, and their companies, that give us as much information as we can. So let's break for just a minute for our Better Horses Tip of the Week.
Hi, I'm a nutritionist with Mad Barn, and I'm just getting my horse Ben here ready for a ride. And I was thinking about, did you guys know that exercising your horse on an empty stomach increases their risk for ulcers? Now, exercise is important for gut motility, promoting water intake, and overall health. So when a horse is exercising, their stomach is compressed and it increases more acid. So that, coupled with the movement of exercise, can cause some of that gastric acid to splash up onto the unprotected squamous region of the stomach, increasing their risk for ulcers. You can consider feeding some hay before exercise to create a fibrous barrier in the stomach to help protect it. Now, I hope you learned something new today, and make sure you follow Mad Barn on social media for more insights on equine nutrition and digestive health.
And as we know, ulcers are a big thing that we have to really look out for the winter months. Hey, Merle, let's get this show started. Stay on board. We got Carrie Coon coming up right after a word from our sponsors. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And we'll be right back.
Get quality you can stand on. Hoof Grip is the proprietary formula that provides shock absorption for your animals with no ice buildup, slipping, cracking, or sogginess, making it the safest, most comfortable, and maintenance-free flooring on the market. Hoof Grip installs quickly and easily over existing surfaces, is easy to clean, and withstands extreme heat or cold. From vet offices to barns, wash racks to trailers and more. Visit hoofgrip.com to find a dealer in your area today.
We're here for the hardworking, the resilient. We're for the people who measure their days by what needs to get done, not by hours. Where kids learn responsibility at a young age and generations work side by side. Where work doesn't pause for holidays or bad weather. It just gets harder. Where value and hard work means more than the clothes you wear. We're Kleinschmidt's Western Store, Higginsville, Missouri.
Routine dental examination and treatments are essential for high-quality horse care. To prevent potential problems, a horse's mouth should be examined at least once a year. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins, Equine Field Service Veterinarian at Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. We can examine the mouth and provide a treatment plan to meet the needs of each client and their horse. Visit us at ksvhc.org, the Veterinary Health Center, to discover, to teach, to heal.
Welcome back to Better Horses. We appreciate you being dialed into our radio show. And I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And you know, this segment is sponsored by the Kansas State University Veterinarian Medicine, and they are great teams out there. And I got to tell you, we've looked at a lot of professionals coming on our radio show. I am pleased and honored to have our next guest. He's a professional horse trainer. He's got an equine clinician group coming in. He's an author. He's a motivational speaker. And I got to tell you, he's done it all. He's born in Medicine Lodge, Kansas in 1975. He's passionate about communicating with horses and bringing people together and getting really good ideas on how to train horses. Everybody, welcome aboard, Kerry Kuhn. Kerry, welcome to Better Horses.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
All right, Kerry, we're just talking about how cold it is out there. So we've got to get our horses legged up. I know you've got some tricks of trying to keep your horses tuned up for going into the spring. So what's some of the things we have to be looking out for?
Well, I was just standing in the post office this morning telling the lady working behind the counter, she made a comment as I walked in, how she loved the colder weather. And I said, anybody that loves cold weather does not train horses outside for a living. And it's so funny because, I mean, it's the weather's changed quite a bit for us down here. 20-some degrees in the morning. It's amazing. Those horses are like standing around out there, jumping around like you've given them a shot of adrenaline. They can't hardly stand still. And when you're trying to work horses every day, and now you've got these horses that have all this extra life, maybe they're not spooky, but when it gets cold, they're moving around, maybe just trying to keep warm. And now all of a sudden you crawl on this horse, he feels like he's going to buck you off. So it's, for us, I'm used to it. I've been doing it my whole life. I've got some things that I do warming my horses up when it's cold, just to kind of deal with that extra life or energy those horses have because of the cold weather. But it's a huge issue for a lot of people that don't ride as consistent as I do. And sometimes they take this cold weather for granted. They take their horses for granted. And next thing you know, they crawl on a fresh horse. He's jumping around. They're laying on the ground. And it's kind of a mess. So,
you know, we see that all the time. And Kerry, not only is it dangerous for the rider, but also for the horses that have just been sitting out there in the pasture or just sitting in that stall. I see it time and time again that they just get up, they saddle up, they're cold, they just want to hurry up, get their ride done, and then put them right back in their stalls. There's got to be some type of warm-up procedures that you go through that the riders and the listeners out there can tap into.
Well, there is. And for us, I try to keep it pretty simple. So probably the number one thing that I will do, and depending on how much time I have, I might be saddling one colt knowing that I'm going to crawl on some more right after that. So I might take the second horse I'm going to crawl on and turn him loose in my round pen while I'm saddling, getting ready to work the first one. And that second colt that I'll be crawling on after this first one, he's usually running around in that round pen. So by the time I'm done with my first one, I've got the energy out of that second one, and I didn't do anything but take him out of his pen and put him in the round pen. The first one, when I saddle him, I've got some drills that I do on the ground, and all I'm trying to do is figure out where that horse's mind is. If it's cold and he's got a lot of energy, or like I said earlier, maybe he's just moving around trying to keep warm. What I want to do is I want to put him to use in some way that's going to show me that he's able to contain his thoughts and his emotions enough to control his behavior. And it might be something as simple as maybe I just lunge him around on the ground for 3 or 4 minutes. What I'm probably going to do and focus on the most is getting those horses to a trot or lope before I crawl on, because the lope's really where you're going to see the biggest difference. But then I've got a bunch of drills that we do backing horses up and turning them around that we'll do on the ground. And again, it's nothing more than to say, okay, I understand it's cold. You got all this energy. You're moving around trying to keep warm. I'm going to give you something to do until you can calm yourself down enough to control what you're doing before I just throw a leg over you.
Sure. Well, and Kerry, you bring up a good point. I think a lot of our listeners here on Better Horses, they get on their horse and think, oh, he's a little fresh and I can ride through. But, like you said, there's no shame in hopping back off and putting those suckers on a lunge line for a few minutes, is there?
No, there's not. I would probably tell somebody you're probably better off to do it before you even get on.
Sure.
I would try my best not to make it a habit of crawling on one that's really fresh, they're acting a certain way that I don't want. So then I step off to address it. I don't want my horse ever thinking they can do things like that on a consistent basis. It's going to get me to step off of them. So I would probably tell that person, just make it a priority to do some of this and check out some things before you crawl on. But at the end of the day, if you crawl on one and he's so fresh you can't control what he's doing, step off, put him to work, but make it enough work that he says to you, okay, I'm ready to not act this way anymore.
Better to step off than fall off.
Yeah, or get helped off.
You know, if there's one thing we realize with all these winter coats that they have on, they can sweat and they work it up. So cooling down is just as important. Do you have any tips on that? And a lot of people are still using coolers, which I think is a good idea, but maybe blanketing too soon, not enough. Your thoughts?
Well, I really think it depends on the condition of the horse, how much hair coat that horse has. Like for us, we'll get them pretty much just as sweaty when it's cold out as we do when it's hot, because we're going to work one. But if we get them pretty sweaty, like this morning, I just crawled off one. She was pretty sweaty when I got done. So we'll just go ride around at a walk around our property or go down the dirt road or something until that horse is dried off before we unsaddle them. So I like to spend the time. For me, it's not just whether or not their hair's wet. I feel like to really cool a horse off, I don't want to just tie him up to a fence where now all those muscles that I had so active for an hour and a half, now he's standing still and he can't move. I want to keep him mobile. So I prefer to cool my horses off while I'm still on them, but I know time doesn't always allow that for everybody. But
Well, and what about, there's kind of mixed results. I see a lot of people that tend to put a sheet or blanket on, especially outside horses. And I always think, Mother Nature meant for most of those horses to live outside without a sheet or blanket. Do you have a certain criteria you look for if you blanket outside horses?
Well, me personally, unless we've got a horse that we're going to be showing, we don't blanket anything. I personally believe it's healthy to let your horse deal with all the different seasons that your environment provides. For a horse to grow hair is healthy for them. And I feel like they can do a better job at regulating their body heat than we can. Even if they're standing outside in a rainstorm or freezing rainstorm and they're soaking wet, they got icicles hanging off of them, they're standing over there shaking. Well, a horse will shiver to keep warm. If they've got something to eat, they're going to generate some body heat while they're eating hay. So we personally don't blanket our horses. We like them to be able to do what God designed them to do, living out in the elements. And what's funny is I married a lady that if I would allow her, she would have her horse in our house for the whole winter.
We've met them.
And over
yes.
the last 2 years, she has finally seen the difference in my horses, and she doesn't even blanket her horse now. And it's pretty interesting to see the difference. But I personally think it's pretty healthy for them.
And if you're just joining us, we're talking to Kerry Kuhn over there at Medicine Lodge, Kansas. And Kerry, you've just put together your 2025 clinics throughout the entire year. Let's talk about that. And you're kind of like all over the United States. Congratulations! It's going to be an aggressive season for you.
It is. I'm really looking forward to it. We've been blessed to be able to travel to 46 of the 50 states so far. We're adding a couple more for 2025 on the 4 that I hadn't been to yet. So I feel extremely blessed to be able to do what I do, travel this country. I love horses, but I've probably got more of a passion now to speak into people's lives, not just about their horses, but to help somebody understand how to bring some motivation or some inspiration into their life that helps them achieve the things that they want to do on a daily basis, even when everything isn't going perfect in their life. And I feel like that's horse training in a nutshell. There's days we're going to go to the barn and saddle a horse and we don't feel like it. We might have other things going on at the house.
You bet.
Our body might be hurting somewhere, but we start to see the consistency in the mindset of developing some non-negotiables and then how you implement them into your life. And I think my 3 boys have probably done as much at inspiring me as I've had the ability to inspire other people. So,
It's well said. And if you are wanting to know what that schedule looks like, you can go to kerrycoon.com and he will give you all the backgrounds. Kerry, real quick, tell us what you want to target in on your clinics. And let's also talk about, you have a book out, which we just happened to read, Hiding Behind the Horses. And I know that's something that you're very proud of, and talks about all of your pursuits and talks about all your challenges you had in life. And so that's something that I want to get you to comment before we let you go.
Well, our clinics are just geared towards general horsemanship. We've got some youth horsemanship clinics. We've got some breakaway roping horsemanship clinics scheduled for this year. We've got some cow horse fundamental clinics scheduled for this year. So we've got a lot of different clinics scheduled throughout the year. Again, anybody can get to our website, kerrycoon.com, and see where those locations are at. As far as my book is concerned, I am extremely honored and proud of the book, not so proud of the decisions I made earlier in my life that are in that book, but to be able to be in a position now to use those poor decisions I made and see how they have inspired other people and maybe in some way help them find some hope out of a bad situation for themselves has been beyond a blessing for me. So I'm really proud about that. We've actually been talking to a couple different companies that might be interested in doing some different things with that book. So I'm excited to see where it might end up.
Well, I got to tell you, congratulations on everything that you're doing. And on behalf of the horse community, we want to let you know that we appreciate everything you do going out there. So, and we are joined by Kerry Coon. You can check out his website at kerrycoon.com. And I got to tell you, Merle, we got more coming your way as we talk about horse insurance. Kerry, you may want to stay with us as we talk about this. Anyway, we're going to be coming to you right after we hear a word from our sponsors. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And we'll be right back. And welcome back to Better Horses. So glad you dialed in. Merle, this is another exciting show that we get to talk all about the equine industry.
Yeah, and we've got a good segment for them coming up too.
It's the sexiest part of Horsemanship 101, and I think with our guests, let everyone know that the following segment is brought to you by Heritage Tractor. Now, if you want to explore all your options in tractors, this is where you need to go. If you're located in Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas, complete all your farm needs with heritagetractor.com. Okay, now Merle, we talk about this. We talk about nutritionists, veterinarians. We get trainers out here, but what we don't talk about is insurance. And now I hear our radio listeners out there right now, and they're rolling their eyes. Oh my gosh, what kind of segment is this going to be? And who invites their insurance agency to come out to the barn and let's talk horses? Well, I want to introduce you to one of our agents out there at the American National Insurance. His name is Jacob Freiberger. And Jacob and I met at the Color Breed Congress over there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he's brought a lot of information coming our way, and we're going to talk all about horses and insurance. Merle, let me help you welcome Jacob Freiberger at American National Insurance. Jacob, welcome to Better Horses.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Now, Jacob, we're going to get to talking about insurance, but and we do this at the end of the year. There's one thing everybody's thinking about: taxes. Where am I at with my businesses? And, now I got to think, am I overpaying insurance? Am I underpaying insurance? Am I covered? Am I not covered? What's the first thing we should do when we're thinking about the insurance side? And let's bring that over to like barns and horses and whether it makes sense to have this thing all insured.
The biggest thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you're in contact with your agent. Once a year, you need to be talking to them about it because everything changes so much. Prices in horses go up because we all know how that works. You start winning money, your horse's value changes. You start doing things, values change. A 2x4 this year doesn't cost what a 2x4 last year cost, so we got to talk about those things and make sure that your barns are covered adequately in case something does happen. It's not the funnest conversation in the world to always have because, we got to worry about the bottom dollar, but I'd rather have adequate coverage than someone being really upset because they wanted to take the low road and now they're not covered correctly, and then it turns into other problems, and it's not fun to go down that road.
A couple of stats here. In 2023, nearly 500,000 animals were killed by barn fires. And we look at barns and we look at what the value it is and what the value to replace that. And, in your professional opinion, are we pretty much covered most of the barns out there, or do you think we have a lot of room to grow on that category?
I think you have a lot of room to grow on that category, to be honest. I think that most people that are out there, when I go out and do evaluations on barns, they come back, they're like, wow, this is a lot more than what I'm already currently paying and for replacement costs on my barn. And this is really high. Well, if something happens, it needs to be covered adequately. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I got something that satisfied what needed to be done. And then, they grossly underinsure themselves. And you're gonna kind of get what you pay for on that deal. And then when you have a catastrophe, well, then it's, no one's happy. It's your insurance agent's fault. Well, if they're doing their job and they're talking to you, no, it's really not. So you have to take into a lot of factors what goes on with all that.
And I think that you bring up a good point. I think a barn fire is probably every horse owner's worst nightmare, and nobody likes to think about that until it's too late. Are there what questions should we be asking our agent? Like how do we know if we're underinsured?
So you should be having that conversation at least yearly with your agent. Are we adequately covered for the replacement cost of the building? Again, a 2x4, 2x6 stall fronts, they're ever changing in price, so if I built this barn last year, it's going to be different in price if they need to look at it for this year. Yeah, I understand that if you have a lien on it or whatever, the bank's going to want you to make sure that it's adequately covered too, because they don't want to be, holding the pot basically at the end of it too, when then you're backwards or something on it. So, you just need to make sure that they're doing proper valuations. Who built your barn, you knew who to contact to, get a quote for what it's going to take to rebuild that barn. And then, go from there. The agents need to do some due diligence out there, but, the property owner needs to be willing to help, and that way they can be part of the process and see what's going on with it.
And if you're just joining us, we're talking to Jacob Freiberger over there at the American National Insurance, and we're talking about horses and barns, and we're talking about basically coverage. And let's move over to horse insurance if we can. And, we always hear these stats where, you should cover 2 to 4% of your horse's value is generally the cost of insurance. Let's talk about that for just a minute. And when we cover our horses, what does it cover? I mean, does it cover vet bills? What type of vet bills? And why would you have insurance on your horses?
So on your mortality policies for your horses are really kind of cool because you can custom build those. So you can get emergency surgery coverage, you can get colic coverage, you can get, a whole gamut of coverages with that mortality policy. So if something happens, we'll take the easy one here for a second. If you have your basic mortality policy and we'll say you turn your horse out in a paddock and it's out for a bereavement, just being a horse, and thunderstorm rolls through or something, you're trying to get it brought in and lightning strikes it, it happens. None of us want to think of it, but it happens. You want to make sure that you have coverage for that. And a lot of these policies, they have these things built into them, the peril groups on them. So you want to make sure that your perils that you have are covered. If you have a horse in the stall and it gets cast or something rolling and it breaks a leg or something, you want to make sure you have adequate coverage for that stuff. There's just with the mortality, it's really customizable to the individual's need for what they have for the horses. So it's a lot of fun to build them. In all reality, it's a lot of fun to build them because, horses aren't, our hobby is not cheap at all, and we love what we do. And, it's an investment. And some of these horses, that you see going out, I have a friend that just went through the bloodstock sale and, his horse that went through there almost, it was like around $100,000 that it brought. And that's a big investment. You got to make sure that they're covered.
You know, Merle, I know you have a lot of expensive horses out at your barn. I think one of the questions that we get is, at what age is it not feasible to cover your horse? I mean, if you got an 18-year-old horse, I mean, should you keep covering it? What's the thought process from the insurance company's perspective? Is there a limit on the age that you can cover a horse?
It does come up to a limit. They get to a point to where, mortality on horses is one of those things to where it's kind of like life insurance. The older they get, the more expensive it's going to get. So if you start it while it's young, you're going to be into something that's going to stay pretty feasible through its life. Now, geldings are different than stallions and mares, so if you get to a point to where you retire a horse and it's just going to go live a happy life out in the pasture, that's a question you have to wrestle with yourself. Is it really worth me having the coverage on this? He's not really making me a living anymore. He's not doing things for me, that's bringing a return of investment for me, so that's a question for the individual to have to wrestle with themselves. Would I be okay just dropping the coverage down to $20,000 or $10,000, or do I want to keep it at that $80,000 where that horse is, while we were promoting them, that's where they were at. If you're taking a stallion or a mare down the road and you're promoting them and they're winning points or checks or whatever, and you've got a lot of investment in that animal going, let's do that until you're going to go ahead and not promote them anymore. And then when you're not promoting them, let's bring it down a little bit. There's not a set number or specific. It is so customizable to the individual that has the animal, and that's a lot of it.
Well, I think, Jacob, you bring up a good point because, kind of just the opposite of the barn insurance, like we were talking about, where, it seems like everything goes up, up, up. A horse's value at some point in their life does start to depreciate, and you don't have to necessarily insure that horse for the purchase price. You can underinsure that horse because the value as a 18 or 19-year-old may be significantly less than when they bought it as a 6 or 8-year-old and they were showing it, right?
Yeah, because you're not promoting it. It's not out there. It's not making a return of investment for you. It's turned into more of a friend to have at the house in the pasture. You're going to teach your kids to ride on it. Which that carries a lot of value. But again, it's not returning. It's not returning anything to you on a
necessarily financial value. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Jacob, if they wanted to get a hold of you and talk about the horse coverage or barn coverage, what's the best contact information you can give them?
My email address is the easiest way to do it. And then, my phone number. I have my phone with me all the time. It goes with me everywhere I go. Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse, but but that's the easiest way to do it. I don't have any other way than just the email and my phone. So, my phone number is 620-639-5097. And my email is jake.freiberger@american-national.com. And we're pretty responsive on either way. So
perfect. Jacob, I want to thank you for coming on our show today. I know coming to the end of the year, everybody wants to see, am I covered? This is the time we all have to think about it. And like we said, Merle, this is not the most sexiest thing about riding horses, but hey, it is important. And I don't think we put enough time and effort into it. It's important.
Yeah.
Jacob, thank you for joining us. And again, if you missed that number, 620-639-5097. And Merle, we got more coming your way. We're going to talk about Zacharias horsemanship with Sid and Jacqueline over there. I want everybody to stay with us, and we'll be right back right after these messages. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dylan Luter, a specialist in equine performance medicine at the Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. Our new service focuses on lameness diagnosis, advanced imaging, physical therapy, and regenerative medicine for horses with injuries preventing them from performing at their best. We can treat a variety of conditions and design a customized rehabilitation plan to meet the needs of each client and their horse. Visit us at ksvhc.org, the Veterinary Health Center, to discover, to teach, to heal.
Hi, I'm Tommy with Heritage Tractor. Whether you're looking to maintain your yard or your whole ranching operation, Heritage Tractor has John Deere mower and tractor packages that make work fly by. With a variety of horsepower and attachment configurations, we have a package to best fit your needs and budget. To learn more about these exclusive packages, visit us in store or online at heritagetractor.com.
Legendary products, extraordinary service. That's our heritage.
Established in 1956, the Pinto Horse Association of America was formed to welcome all types of equines and maintain their show records and pedigrees. PTHA currently has over 88,000 members with 157,000 registered Pintos. There are currently 3 separate registries: the Color Registry, the Solid Registry, and the Long Ear Registry. We welcome all levels of competition within a family-friendly environment. Become a member, register, and add value to your horse. For more information, check out the website pintoworld.com.
Get quality you can stand on. Hoof Grip is the proprietary formula that provides shock absorption for your animals with no ice buildup, slipping, cracking, or sogginess, making it the safest, most comfortable, and maintenance-free flooring on the market. Hoof Grip installs quickly and easily over existing surfaces, is easy to clean, and withstands extreme heat or cold. From vet offices to barns, wash racks to trailers and more. Visit hoofgrip.com to find a dealer in your area today.
We're here for the hardworking, the resilient. We're for the people who measure their days by what needs to get done, not by hours. Where kids learn responsibility at a young age and generations work side by side. Where work doesn't pause for holidays or bad weather. It just gets harder. Where value and hard work means more than the clothes you wear. We're Kleinschmidt's Western Store, Higginsville, Missouri.
It's time to go with United Mosquito and Fly Control's premier fly system for fly control in your barn, providing relief for horses from the stress of fighting flies, and also makes the barn more pleasant for everyone in the barn. Easy, effective, and safe. With United Mosquito and Fly Control, we provide a full service. You as the barn owner don't have to do anything. We go everywhere and take care of everything with our friendly fast service. Call today at 913-558-3814 or email Paul at unitedmosquito.com.
And welcome back to Better Horses. Merle, this is getting to be one exciting show, and we just keep learning more and more. Who knew all that about insurance?
Well, we found out a lot, and we're going to find out a lot of this segment too.
You know, I am proud and honored, and I met this young lady at the Color Breed Congress in Tulsa, and she is a whirlwind of professionalism when it comes to horses. And I want to introduce Zacharias Horsemanship. Now, this is a young team, Sid and Jacqueline, and they go into the basics of advanced horsemanship. Now, whether you're beginning or just starting a horse, or whether you're really into complex patterns and in the show pen, this is a two that you need to really look into. Jacqueline is a lifelong equestrian. Now, she has a background in hunter jumpers. She spent several years studying the classical riding and switching over to Western disciplines in her mid-teens. So she's been doing this for quite a long time, Merle. And I got to tell you, she's really focusing in on ranch riding, and she's won multiple world championships and reserved world championships over there in the ranch events. And I'm excited to have her on board. Help me welcome Jacqueline Zacharias. Jacqueline, welcome to Better Horses.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I gave you the introduction, but I kind of left out the fact that you were also on Extreme Mustang Makeovers, and so you have a lot of history. Yeah, that's one challenging event, and you won that championship a few times.
Yes, so that is an interesting part of my story there, and it's taught me an incredible amount about the horsemanship and horses, and being thorough in my approach and how I go about training. And with a lot of the quarter horses nowadays, or a lot of your domestic breeds, you know, they really meet you halfway so much of the time. They really hand us a lot. And so I think being able to go back to the roots and really have to start one from the ground up and do all that stuff and build the trust, that has been super important in creating me and who I am as a horsewoman.
You know, everybody's talking about colt starting and starting your horses from the ground zero. You've done a lot of that. You have a lot of passion and training and going into competitions, but finishing a horse is almost just as difficult as starting a horse. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And maybe even more so, I would say, because I do feel like and this could get a little controversial. I don't know. I feel like sometimes they are pretty good troll starters and you can find them a dime a dozen. And I know that that first 90 days is incredibly important in the horse's whole education. But at the same time, when it comes down to the finesse and refining those maneuvers and stuff, that takes such a long time to develop the feel and those microseconds that you need to be on time and figure each part of the maneuvers out. That's difficult. And then you have to get to that place on each horse to be able to practice those things. So yeah, I definitely think it's as difficult, if not more.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because I think a lot of people's definition of broke will vary quite a bit. And what maybe you or I or Ed or whoever considers broke might not be quote unquote a finished horse for somebody else, or our definition could be considerably higher. So how do you relate that to clients when they're coming to you and say, hey, how long does it take to get my colt broke? Like what do you tell them back?
Well, thankfully at this point we have a client base who kind of has a general understanding, because we're showing horses and stuff, of what a more finished horse looks like. But you do still have those people that come in and they want a colt start, and they say, I can leave it, we do a 90-day minimum. And they say, I would like you to work on lead changes while you're here.
Yeah.
So I'm just, then you have to have the talk and be like, okay, so this is the kind of foundation that we build. And obviously everything from the start to finish, you're working on things that work into a lead change, but I'm not going to be working on a lead change in this. So that's kind of hard, to talk to clients about that. What I really try to lay out for them is the depth of foundation that we have to put on before even getting to those maneuvers. Because if you try to rush the complex maneuvers, all you do is build a ton of anxiety for that horse. So you just move backwards. So if you can only afford 90 days, put a good 90-day foundation on them and wait till you can actually send that horse in for more. Don't try to find a trainer who tells you that they're going to work on lead changes in 90 days and turns your horse into a train wreck. So I don't know. What about you? Like, how do you tell people, okay, that's,
yeah, no, it's interesting, because I think like you picked up on is we do have a very educated client base on one end of the spectrum that understands, like, hey, like the penalties to, the ranch riding and everything, and all the minute details to that. And then on the other side, we have a lot of new people that are interested, that want to get started, that have all these great ideas, and they have a 2-year-old at home and says, just the same thing you said, hey, yeah, I want to work on lead changes and showing ranch riding. Well, you got a 2-year-old that's not broke, we got to do what we can do. I handle it the same. I'm always curious to see how other people do it.
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to have you weigh in on the case study where you have your owner has way too much horse for her ability or his ability to ride. How do you attack that? And do you go after the horse first to bring it to the level of the rider, or do you bring the rider to bring it to the level of the horse?
I think that you kind of work on those a little bit simultaneously from the get-go. When we have a horse that comes in that's too much for the owner, I think it becomes evident pretty quickly. And some horses do come around and become very mature, stable mounts, but others, like after 6 months, if they're just a fire-breathing dragon, and even if they have a ton of talent, and you're like, this horse is going to be way too much for this rider, we definitely start putting it out for them, saying, hey, this horse is really talented, but you might want to consider your options in this way and this way. And if they're just absolutely determined that they're going to show this horse, then what we try to do is to get the horse out there, get it seasoned, get it showing and winning some stuff, and then dial it back and maybe just have them showing some rail classes, because everybody wants to win. So what we like about some of the Pinto shows is that they'll have a walk trot events too, so that rider maybe can get on that horse and walk and trot around the pen. Maybe they don't do a complex pattern, and maybe they can go win a few things and feel like they actually got something out of that horse. But we're always very upfront with him if we find a horse that's just not going to be a good match. But we've had it several times. Every trainer has, to where that client's just insistent that they're going to make it work. So,
yeah, and that's one neat thing about the Pinto and the color breed. I think a lot of people maybe discredit that walk trot division, but I've used it multiple times to help a green horse and or a green rider, come up through the ranks. And just because you start at walk trot doesn't mean that rider's level of ability won't increase and be able to go into novice and into the amateur classes, or even open eventually, I guess. But, I think that's a great point, Jacqueline.
Absolutely. You're 1,000% right on that. I don't think it should be discredited at all, even for the trainers who bring, like you said, really green horses in those classes, because especially like at a trail class or something, maybe that horse just needs to get in the arena by himself, trot over some poles, but he's not ready to do the loping part yet that can really bring a horse's energy up and get him worried and stuff. And the same goes for riders. So building the confidence at the show is extremely important for both horse and rider, and those walk trot classes have been pretty transformative for that.
Yes. Yeah,
and if you're just joining us, we're talking to Jacqueline Zacharias at Zacharias Horsemanship. Herself and Sid are together, and they're working on their advanced horsemanship with all of their clients, and they're located in Adair, Oklahoma. And so I have to ask you, you two, Jacqueline, you and Sid teamed up together and started embarking on this business adventure, and have you ever looked back?
No, yeah. So we actually met at a big event in Fort Worth, Texas, and he was from Wisconsin originally, and I was from Tennessee. And so then we're in a long distance relationship, and an opportunity at a certain barn opened up here in Oklahoma, and we both moved out here, and then we got married. So yeah, it's been a great adventure. It's been a little bit, as I'm sure any husband and wife trainer team will tell you, it's definitely a challenge to learn how to work together in this field. I don't know if it's more difficult than other fields. I haven't worked with myself in other areas, except maybe like right now we're building a house, and I will say, if we make it through this.
Could we add more stress level to this? Okay, that's actually, congratulations on that. I have to also say, she's also on YouTube. You can catch her on YouTube. You also have some great videos. Actually, not just you, but Sid's also weighing in on some great tips at the for the shows and just horsemanship. And we want to have you keep doing that. And I know Merle and Susie Arbo has that same sentiment when it comes to working as a team, right, Merle?
Yeah, it has its ups and it has its downs, and it's challenging at times. I think everybody comes with it with a different perspective and also, a different opinion. So you do have to kind of weigh that out delicately.
Yes.
Yeah, we put Merle on radio and Susie on TV, and that keeps them separated, and that's why we have such success. But Jacqueline, you've done really well. I want to congratulate you. We'd like to have you come back on board on our radio, but I want to tell our listening audience to be looking for you and Sid coming to Better Horses TV here soon. We're having our conversation. So notice how, Merle, I just wrapped her right into that real quick, and she can't even say no.
Yeah.
It's nationwide now, and she can't say no. So, Jacqueline, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you coming on board to Better Horses. Hey, can you let everybody know your website address and how to get in touch with you?
Yes, that is ZachariasHorsemanship.com, and the same with YouTube. You can find us on YouTube as Zacharias Horsemanship. Ed, thank you so much for having me on, and it was great to chat with you, Merle.
Yes, same here. Appreciate it.
And that was Zacharias Horsemanship, and you can get a hold of them right there. And if you want to get their email address, ZachariasHorsemanship@gmail.com. Merle, we meet the most talented people at these horse shows, and the Color Breed being a good example.
Oh yeah. I mean we got 2 out of 3 guests from Color Breed here today, and that was a fun show. It was a fun segment too, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really good. And I encourage everyone out to keep their horses legged up. I know it's going to be cold out there. We're going into winter. And we got to keep mentally healthy on top of this too, Merle.
Seasonal depression. I can say this because my wife is a LPC counselor. She says that people are more affected by that than most people would give it credit for.
Yeah, I agree. So let's stay positive. Remember, happiness is a byproduct of having horses, and that's what we all need to remember. So while you're driving, while you're doing your chores or riding horses, we invite you to listen to this show if you want to hear it again, and look at our radio podcast, now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Foxfire, Chrome, Echo, and Merle, we're even on YouTube.
Well, Ed, don't forget the Better Horses Fall Edition newspaper is out. So we've got a lot of great tips, and be sure to check that out.
We're getting the winter edition all squared away. That's going to be closing out soon. And to all of you that are watching our TV show, we want to thank you. It's also airing on RFD, the Cowboy Channel, and streaming on Equus TV.
And I'd like to give a special thanks to our team behind the scene, our radio producer, Brianna Johnson, and our TV producer, Kelly Creech, and of course, all of our great sponsors.
They do a great job on that. We appreciate everything they do. Well, I tell you what, we want to wrap it up for this week. Merle, I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to thank all of you to be good buckaroos and buckarettes. I want you to mind your mom and dads and be brave, but don't take any chances out there. And until next time, I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
Happy trails, and always ride for the brand.